And as you were saying that, the word that came to mind, I know we about to get to the last clip. We'll probably cut this up into 2 parts and then put a lot of different clips from it out. But the word that was coming to mind is a football term called encroachment. And it's an actual word too. An encroachment, let me get the actual definition. What we got? My bad. Okay. Encroachment is intrusion on a person's territory, rights, etc. Right? Now in football, if there's encroachment, that means you crossed the line before you were supposed to. And there's a penalty for that. Y'all got to go back 5 yards at least. If you get multiple encroachments, the penalties get even heavier. There is no real penalty for how men are encroached on our belief, how we see love, how we see connection. And from what he just doled out, maybe some of that did hold up. But for them to be married, a lot of that had to shift. Right? So there's encroachment on our belief system that even shows up in real. I was counseling a brother the other day, and we've experienced this at certain points. Even just how much stuff ends up in a house with 2 people that are together. When a woman is got these projects, got the backspace, right? Backsplash or whatever.
Backsplash. Now you got me saying it the wrong way.
Got the backspace, right? But all this creative force will turn into physical fruition and objects taking up space in the household. It was to the point wifey had to get a storage unit a couple years ago. And he was talking about he loves her, he loves his space, but he just feels so encroached on with the objects. He feels so encroached on the mandate that anytime she wants to have a conversation, he should be ready to do so. He even felt encroached on by her loudness when they would even talk. And it's so many different ways that women don't realize if you got to do all this pushing, all this encroaching, you may get the man to sign up for what it is you're asking for, but you're not getting that man in his true state. Mm-hmm. You're not getting him in his most authentic self. And at a certain point, even if he says, okay, I'm going to adjust myself, I'm going to squeeze into this little corner of how you see the world, eventually he's going to need to do this. And a lot of times that's going to look like the divorce. It's going to look like the separation, infidelity, stepping out, getting cold, shutting down, not wanting to come in the crib when he park in front because, oh my God, I got to go in here again. I got to go in this box. So you may win the game. You may get the ring, you may get the matrimony, but is it with the actual man that he truly is outside of your encroachment?
Yeah, and I think the other part of that too is when that man shows up, he's gonna always at some point go back to who he really is.
Absolutely.
And women think, oh, I got you to marry me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but but then he goes back to the fact that he may not have wanted to be married that quickly, and then resentment turns.
Right, no doubt.
So all of that has to be acknowledged.
Okay. Is that last clip?
Yep.
Can you predict someone's divorce by their wedding? Uh-oh. I believe that sometimes the bigger the wedding, the more likely the divorce. That's been my experience. I have done, and I happen to be in the high net worth space, so of course a lot of my people have a lot of money, so they had big weddings. But I have found that the bigger the ring, the bigger the wedding spectacle, the more likely the divorce, in my experience. Because there is something extremely performative about a wedding. And there's also something extremely narcissistic about a wedding. Like, if you break down like the role of a bride in a traditional wedding, meaning its current iteration, it's an unbelievably narcissistic pursuit for a woman. Like, we're going to do an engagement, which is you're going to give me a stone of tremendous value that I'm going to wear as a public display of the fact that I am now engaged in this commitment. And then I'm going to put that on social media. And then we're going to have an engagement party. So that's party one. Okay. Then we're going to have, all of these activities around planning this singular day where I'm going to be the center of attention, right? And everything's going to be structured around me. And then I'm going to have a bachelorette party, party number 2. Then we're going to have a rehearsal dinner, party number 3. Then we're going to have the wedding, party number 4, right? And wedding reception, if you consider that part of the same. Then we're going to have a post-wedding brunch usually the next day, right? And then we're going to have a honeymoon, which is basically like a week of partying over the fact that so we're at 6 parties now, 7 parties, and then by the way, if we're doing it, then we're going to have a baby shower. Then we're going to have I forgot the bridal shower, by the way. I forgot the bridal shower. I left that out. I said bachelorette party, but I didn't do bridal shower. So we're up to 7 parties for that.
Oh, great.
If this is really important to you, you're telling me a lot about yourself. You're telling me how important being the center of attention is to you. and how much this performative thing is to you. You know, when all of the money and time that was spent. Now, by the way, I'm not pissing on weddings. Like, I think having a wedding's great.
Yeah.
Like, I think if the first time you get everybody you love in the same room as your funeral, you're an idiot. Like, I think you should celebrate. Like, I love this person. They love me. We found each other. How improbable was that? 8 billion people in the world. We found each other. You know, have a party, take some pictures, have some drinks, do the dance, do the whole thing. It's great, man. Eat some pigs in blankets. Love it. But we've turned it into just a spectacle. I mean, the wedding industrial complex, man, it's a trillion dollar industry. It's insane. It's insane. And again, catastrophically fails more than 50% of the time. But they don't tell you that part.
Do people often divorce because of their wedding?
Well, I mean, technically everyone divorces because of their wedding.
Yeah, that's
if they
fair.
didn't get married, they wouldn't be getting divorced. But no, I've not seen people that have a bad experience at the wedding and then immediately get divorced. Maybe I've seen like marriages that only lasted like a couple of weeks.
That was a really dumb question for me, because I have this assumption in my head that if I would get married, I would get married at court and then do the wedding. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's value to that. I think a lot of people actually do that. Like, because, you know, part of the paperwork you have to fill out when you do a divorce is a certificate of dissolution of marriage, and you have to lay out the actual date of the civil marriage and then the date of what's called the solemnization ceremony, or like the wedding itself. And so you often see that there's a tremendous difference between the two. Like, the people got legally married months before so they could get on each other's health insurance or whatever other reason, and then they did the party and the performance of it a couple months later.
And for context, those who may have never seen him, I don't know his actual name. I don't know if it's up there, but he's an extremely famous lawyer, and he has a lot of dialogue about what he's seen being, I think, a divorce lawyer.
Yeah,
and how many different couples he's worked with. He's had a lot of wisdom. Check him out as well. But that was crazy.
Right. And he just pointed to, when the bigger the wedding, the more likely of the divorce. Based on his experience, that's what he said. And I think what that ties into is the programming. Women are getting married because we've been programmed to desire that since we were younger. We've been programmed to look for the dress. We've been programmed to see it as a status symbol when you have a ring on your finger. And I told the story on one of our last podcasts. I had a ex-boyfriend that I dated, and he cheated with his ex. And she didn't like me for anything. Like I said, she used to call my phone playing that Tony Braxton song. Are you with it? Do you know I've been with him? Whatever that Tony Braxton song was. And so years later, I saw that she married someone that I went to school with. Okay. And I congratulated her. And she commented and she said, ha ha, that's why I got a ring and you don't. That's why I'm a wife and you not. And when she said that, I was like, oh, you think you better than me.
Little did she know.
Right. And you think you better than me. And what it pointed out to is women see rings as status symbols. They see weddings as spectacles and activities for people to come and be able to see, can y'all see I've finally been chosen? To them, the bigger the wedding is evidence that the man really loves them and cherishes them.
And he has status and the means to do all that.
And they want a person to come in and see how much my man loves me, see how much my man cherishes me, see how much my man wants me to have the wedding of my dreams. And with that, because the marriage is the focus, marriage idolatry, they put the marriage on a pedestal and they aren't even focusing on what's happening underneath. They aren't even focusing on what the man is doing, his emotional maturity, his spiritual maturity. And that's how you get people who are married 10 plus years come into tonight's conversation asking questions like, should I leave my husband or should I stay? He's not changing. He's not evolving. It's because you were so focused on getting a ring. You were so focused on having this big extravagant wedding that you weren't actually paying attention to the core of who the man was that you were marrying.
And what I would say to what you said and what the lawyer was saying, the show that popped in my head, I don't know if it's out no more, but Bridezilla. And we saw, you know, wife after wife, woman after woman go on that show and just go ape. Now, I'm not saying all women are that extreme, but what he did say that kind of popped in my head, like if I was still out here on the scene and I found somebody and we're going to do the traditional wedding and all that, if I was a man and I heard my wife to be at any point in the process say, this is my day, I'd probably be done. Or we're going to at least have to have some conversations, because The wedding ceremony, we forget that word ceremony is attached. It's probably the most widely, globally, socially acceptable and used of all spiritual ceremonies. But it is a ceremony, a very powerful one. If you know how much it takes to curate a ceremonial space, from ayahuasca journeys you've done, from you setting up ceremony at our retreats and stuff like that, everything, every little meticulous detail matters. If we are going into a portal of us, and the day we're going to have a ceremony, you got 3 to 6 months to a year leading into that with the philosophy of this is about me, Houston, we got a problem. And this is something that women say, not just jokingly, they mean that. And this is what turns into that bridezilla energy. So everything he just said was on point. And that term, the wedding, you know, I talk a lot about the prison industry complex and what comes with that. The wedding industry complex and how much other people are involved in that portal of us and how much we got to shell out to other people to make sure our day is right. It's just so many things that have the potential to be convoluted on a day like that.
Yeah, I agree. And my thing is, I don't have an issue with people having weddings.
Nah, not at all.
Not even big extravagant weddings.
We thought about it.
Yeah. And when we thought about it,
it was for family.
It was for family.
Because they wanted it.
It was because our family really couldn't accept or come to grips with the fact that we had a ceremony and it was only for us. Mm-hmm. Because they also have been programmed that when your children get married, that they are supposed to be there, mm-hmm. and the father is supposed to give you away, mm-hmm. and we chose to do it on our own. And I think a wedding is beautiful. I think what sullies the wedding that forces them to end in divorce is the fact that there's no intentionality before the wedding. Mm. Because when you have really practiced the intuitive discernment of choosing a man or woman that God has ordained you to be with, that means that you have sat with them. Mm. You've asked the questions about leadership. You've asked the questions about finances. You've asked what support looks like for you. How can I show up for you? How can I honor you? You have assessed their emotional maturity. Y'all have gone to therapy together. Y'all have ironed out the childhood issues. Y'all have ironed out the emotional trauma. Y'all have made sure that the narratives of suffering from your past don't bleed into your present reality. You've acknowledged the wounds and the traumas of the past so they don't manifest in your behaviors and ruin what you have. When you've done the proper work beforehand, I think then you have given yourself the privilege of being able to have the wedding of your dreams. But when you have not done that, there's a disingenuous lack of authenticity that comes with just wanting to be seen, just wanting to be acknowledged, and just wanting the status of having a big wedding, as opposed to a celebration of the fact that y'all have just joined in ceremony. A wedding is a sacred space. And what I've learned is most of the time when women advocate for these big weddings, they don't even remember what happened. Every person I've ever asked that have spent $50,000 to $100,000 on their wedding, they all have said, don't do it. I don't even remember what happened. They all have said, save that money and do something else that you would really like to do with your partner. So I don't want to show this clip and make people think that we are downing weddings. I think weddings are really beautiful, but I think that they are only beautiful when both couples have intentionally done the work.
Yeah, and then this is the last thing I'm going to say. We can end it, but not just this is my day philosophy going into that portal. The 3 to 6 months to year and a half of stress that goes into making sure you have the perfect your day or our day, if you perceive it like that. All of that's going into the portal to the first step y'all are officially taking towards the rest of y'all lives together. And then as I was listening to you, I think one of the things women got to be able to investigate, if you with a man that you feel trustworthy of to be able to keep you free in whatever ways, but you want to have a life with, you want to go to that marriage space with him. He got to be able to have the divine intuition and enough I don't give a fuck in his system to have bypassed OPP, other people's perceptions, because None of that stuff even came in my mind. Oh, I'm supposed to ask your mom, am I allowed to do this? I'm supposed to have a certain amount. Like my wife still got my original ring on right here. You know, it was a little pretty penny for what I could afford at that time. You know, it's a green amethyst. It's not this is the joint, but it's still a lot of energy in this one. But I wasn't asking for nobody else's permission or how God influenced me to flex on when I decided to do it, how I decided to do it. And if we want to talk all this financial stuff, at that time, I wasn't as financially abundant as I am now, largely due to the love that we have shared that has expanded out in so many different directions for both of us. But I couldn't afford to take my wife on a trip at that time. We was about 1.5 years in, and she said, I want to do something special for your birthday. I want to take you to St. John's. I had to process the feeling of, damn, I feel kind of weird. Like I should be able to do that for you, and I'm not at that point yet, but I also don't want to turn down this love. And when she initially told me about it, she didn't know, I didn't know until about a month into when we was about to go to St. John's that I'm about to make her my wife officially, right? And my divine intuition and my lack of other people's perceptions dictating my moves, it put us in a space with a day of the ceremony, and we still got the footage and the evidence. My man Derek Jackson had reviewed the joint and everything. The morning of, we had a beautiful moment of us just getting rained on that went super viral. That was just so intimate. It went everywhere. A large part of why we became visible on social media was because of that. That was the morning. And I didn't even know how the day was going to transpire. I was just trusting my divine intuition and flowing with it. And by that night, we end up on Honeymoon Beach, of all beaches. And the whole time, I'm just trying to figure out where can we go and not get arrested and not get kicked off the beach. And when we finally get the information at the 13th hour, the lady says, oh, go to Honeymoon Beach, of all places. And nobody was there for our ceremony. Not a soul. I couldn't even see her face or vice versa because it was midnight. It's dark. St. John's, Honeymoon Beach, waves splashing up against the shore. We done talked about this mad times, but I had to have that aspect of my defiance of what the world told me, my leadership, and my divine intuition locked in to be able to foster and curate the most perfect experience for us that is continuing to pay dividends.
Yeah, and I think too, because it was just us at our ceremony, that's why our entire union has been so sacred
and pure. Yeah.
It was just me, you, and God. And I think what happens when people have these big extravagant weddings, the intentionality and the sacredness starts to get murky, and it starts to get tainted because not everybody that comes to that wedding actually want to see you happy.
Absolutely.
And so now you have monitoring spirits who are now watching you in your joy, but siphoning it at the same time, and you're not even conscious of it. And I think when they have these big extravagant weddings, there isn't a awareness of how sacred it's supposed to be. Yeah. And sacredness really requires only those people that God has ordained to be there. So you got your coworkers, you got people that don't even like you, that you invited just because you want them to see you happy.
They judging your dress, they judging the cake.
And so many people don't even get along with half of their family, but they are there as well. So you got all of these energies just going into something that's supposed to be your safe union, a sacred union that's supposed to last you for the rest of your life. But you got other people projecting their energies and you aren't even conscious of it. It starts to sully the sacredness of the union. And I think if people were to be more just conscious of that.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that you can't have an event to acknowledge the marriage. But when you are creating something that is so sacred, you want to have a very intimate space that allows those that you trust, those that you love deeply, and those that you know love you deeply. That way only love is going into the space. And that's not just family and friends. People get wedding advisors. People have catering people coming. You have people performing. You have people there doing the lights, people doing the cameras, people who are going through an active divorce, but they're on the team. All of these people are just there. You don't know if they having a good day, if they having a bad day, but they showing up for work. And all of that energy goes into your union and you're not even acknowledging it. So when we start to X out other people's perceptions, and when we stop performing for the world, because if nobody watched you get married, would you still have the same dress? Would you still pick the same venue? Would you still pick all of the same decorations? Would it even matter? If so, if it's just you and your spouse and it still matters, then do it. But once you really do that self-assessment and you acknowledge, if nobody else is here, it's just me, my husband, and God, does all of this other shit really matter? Does it have to be there? If your soul tells you no, then that's how you know you're performing. Your marriage has now been, the wedding has been put on a pedestal, and now you're performing for outside sources as opposed to strengthening a union under the presence of God.